Story 1. The Last Train. I had always taken the train home from work. It had become a normal routine, nothing unusual, just the quiet hum of the train, the occasional murmur of fellow passengers, and the city lights passing by in a blur. But that night, everything changed. It was around 11:30 p.m., the last train of the night. The station was nearly deserted. Only a few people scattered along the platform. Most of them seemed like the type who were in a hurry to get home after long work hours. I wasn't any different. I just wanted to get back to my small apartment and unwind after another exhausting day. The train pulled into the station with a low, almost haunting screech as it came to a stop. As I boarded, I noticed that the car was mostly empty, save for a tall man sitting at the far end. He was dressed in a long, dark coat, which struck me as strange. It was a warm evening, and everyone else was dressed lightly. But this man wore a heavy coat as though it was winter. I found an empty seat a few rows away from him and sat down, trying to settle in for the ride. As the train began to move, I couldn't help but glance back at the man. His face was obscured by the shadows, but his posture seemed odd. He wasn't moving, not even the slightest twitch. His eyes were fixed on the window across from him, and he didn't blink once. It felt unnatural, almost as if he wasn't human at all. Trying to ignore him, I turned my attention to the city flashing by outside, but a nagging sensation in my gut wouldn't go away. Something was wrong. The air in the train felt heavier, as though it was thickening around me. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, but I couldn't shake the sense that I was being watched. At the next stop, the train doors opened, but no one got on. I watched the platform, expecting to see people waiting, but there was nothing. The station was empty, silent. A chill ran down my spine, and the train doors slammed shut. The light flickered briefly, casting eerie shadows throughout the car. The temperature dropped noticeably, and I shivered. I glanced around the train again, trying to calm myself, but the more I looked, the more unsettled I became. The man at the far end had not moved an inch, but now I noticed something even stranger. There was no one else in the car. I looked back and forth, expecting to see more passengers, but it was just me and the man. Everyone else had disappeared without a trace. My heart raced as I tried to rationalize it. Had I missed something? Was I just too tired, imagining things? But the silence that filled the train was deafening. No sounds, no movement, just the cold, oppressive stillness of the empty car. I looked over at the man again, and this time, he turned his head slowly to meet my gaze. His eyes were cold, empty, as though they were staring through me, not at me. His lips parted, and his voice, low and raspy, broke the silence. "Get off the train, before it's too late." I froze, unsure of how to respond. My mouth was dry, my mind racing to process what had just happened. I didn't know if I should laugh it off, ignore him, or get up and leave the train. But something in his voice told me that ignoring him would be the wrong choice. The train stopped again, but this time it wasn't at any station. The doors opened, and I could see nothing outside but an impenetrable black void. The lights inside the train flickered once more, casting long, ghostly shadows. A deep, primal fear gripped me, urging me to get off the train and run. But my body wouldn't move. "Get off! Now!" The man's voice came again, louder this time. There was an urgency in his tone, something that sent a chill straight to my core. I tried to get up, my hands trembling as I reached for the emergency brake, but my body wouldn't respond. It felt like I was trapped in my seat, frozen in place by some unseen force. The man's eyes, still locked onto me, seemed to penetrate deeper and deeper into my soul. The sound of his voice echoed in my mind, louder with each passing second. "You don't belong here." The train jerked forward, speeding up suddenly, faster than it should have been going. I tried to scream, but no sound came from my throat. My hands were shaking uncontrollably as I clutched the edge of the seat, desperate to break free. But I couldn't move. The train rumbled as it picked up speed, and I could feel it hurtling through the darkness. "Get off! Now!" I screamed in my head, but still, nothing happened. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the man who was still sitting perfectly still, unblinking, not a single movement from his body. His face was twisted into a look of anger, and the air around me felt thick with dread. Then suddenly, the train came to an abrupt stop. The jolt knocked me forward, and I slammed into the seat in front of me. The doors opened again, but this time, the platform was gone. There was nothing outside the train but complete darkness. Before I could even react, the train doors slammed shut once more. The motion was so fast and forceful that it sent a shockwave through my body. I felt a pull in my chest, as though I were being dragged into the void outside. The air was suffocating, the silence overwhelming. The train began to move again, but this time, it was as if it was no longer bound by the tracks. It was moving faster than any train should. The walls of the car began to warp, stretching and bending as though they were part of some nightmare, something twisted and unreal. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The train lurched to a halt with a deafening screech. I opened my eyes to find myself back on the platform, the train gone, the station empty. The city lights blinked in the distance, and everything seemed calm, peaceful, as if nothing had happened. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, trying to comprehend what had just occurred. The train, the man, the eerie whispers, they were all gone, as if they had never existed. I walked to the platform edge, my legs unsteady, and looked down the empty tracks. There was no sign of the train, no record of it ever being there. The only thing left was the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something far worse than I could ever understand. I never took that train again. Story 2. The Visitor in the Night. I've always worked the night shift. There's something about the stillness of the night that makes me feel more alive, more at peace. Unlike the day shift, when the world is bustling, the night offers a tranquility that suits me. But that night, the one I will never forget, changed everything. It was 3:12 a.m. when the strange man appeared. I worked at a small, secluded gas station just off the highway. It wasn't near any major city or popular area, just a handful of houses scattered in the distance. The station itself was isolated, surrounded by thick trees and long stretches of empty road. Most nights, it was just me, sitting behind the counter, waiting for the occasional car to drive by for gas or snacks. The quiet was often only broken by the sound of distant truck engines or the occasional animal rustling in the underbrush. That night started like any other. I had settled in behind the counter, sipping on a cup of lukewarm coffee, trying to stay awake. The lights above flickered occasionally, and the hum of the vending machines was the only sound filling the otherwise empty space. It was around 2:50 a.m. when I saw headlights approaching. A car pulled into the lot. It was a regular customer, probably just stopping by for gas. I didn't think much of it. I walked outside, lighting a cigarette as I made my way to the pump. The night air was cool, a sharp contrast to the warmth inside the station. As I approached the car, I heard footsteps behind me. I glanced over my shoulder briefly, expecting to see another passerby or someone coming from the woods. But when I turned back to focus on the car, I saw the man walking toward me from behind. He was dressed entirely in black, his face obscured by a hoodie that looked far too large for him. As he walked closer, I could make out the faint outlines of his face, his features hidden in shadow except for his eyes. His eyes were narrow, intense, and his gaze felt like it was boring into my very soul. He was silent as he moved closer, and his steps were deliberate, almost like he was waiting for something. For a moment, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. He stopped directly in front of me, barely a foot away, and didn't say a word. His head was tilted slightly to the side like he was studying me, examining every movement I made. His eyes were still fixed on me, piercing through the darkness. A chill ran down my spine, and I instinctively took a step back, trying to create some space between us. "Can I help you?" I asked, forcing myself to speak despite the growing sense of unease. He didn't answer right away. His silence was unnerving, more disturbing than anything. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "Don't watch me." I felt a shiver spread through me at those words, as though the air itself had turned cold. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. His voice was low, raspy, as if he hadn't spoken in years. And then there was something else, something unsettling in the way his words seemed to hang in the air. Before I could react or say anything else, my phone suddenly rang. The sharp sound of the ringtone snapped me out of my trance. It was a customer calling about an order, and I quickly answered, trying to sound normal, trying to keep my voice steady. I turned slightly, making sure I wasn't facing the man directly, but I could feel his eyes still on me, like a weight on my shoulders. The call lasted only a few minutes, but in that time, I could feel the man moving even closer. When I hung up and turned back toward him, my stomach dropped. He was standing right in front of me now, only a couple of inches away. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively took another step back, but my body felt frozen. The words I wanted to say seemed stuck in my throat. He finally spoke again, his voice barely audible. "I'll leave, but before I go, look at me." There it was again, the sense of unease, the dread that crawled under my skin. I stood there frozen in place, unsure of what to do. My heart was pounding in my chest and I could feel the blood rushing to my ears. Everything inside me screamed to run, to get away, but my feet refused to move. I glanced over my shoulder, almost out of reflex, and that's when I saw it. In the distance, standing near the edge of the trees, there was a figure. It wasn't clear at first, but when I focused, I saw a shadowy outline. Another person, standing completely still, watching me. My breath caught in my throat, but as soon as I turned around fully, the figure was gone. There was nothing but empty trees and the dark highway beyond. I didn't waste any time. My instincts kicked in, and I ran back toward the station. My hands were trembling as I tried to close the door behind me, but it wouldn't budge. My palms were slick with sweat, and the lock wouldn't catch. Finally, I managed to get the door shut, but my heart wasn't at ease. I immediately rushed to the security monitor, checking the footage from the cameras. Everything seemed normal. There were no signs of the man, no indication that anyone had been there, except for the car that had pulled up earlier. I reviewed the footage again, searching for any clue, any trace of what had just happened. But the only thing I found was something that chilled me to my core. On the screen in the top right corner was a message that hadn't been there before. "You're just a visitor." My hands shook as I stared at the words. I couldn't make sense of it. How did that message get there? I didn't remember typing it, and no one else had been in the station. The feeling of unease deepened, and I knew, with certainty, that something was wrong. I never went back to that gas station again. I told my boss the next day that I'd had an emergency and couldn't make it in. But the truth was, I was terrified. That night I saw something, or someone, that wasn't supposed to be there. And I never wanted to find out what that man or that message meant.